Hi all, this is Akshay Kumar. So in this, I hope you have seen my previous sessions, that is on contracts and tender. So in today's PPT or this presentation, this particular presentation, I will be discussing about the topic called as detailed project report and risk analysis. What do you mean by what here this topic is dealt with? So basically there is a detailed project report and risk analysis. Um is nothing but once the evaluation of tenders takes place, the project's evaluation will be done based on the risk analysis. Okay, so that is the standard procedure where the risk analysis has to be done for each and every project. And once the contract has been awarded to a particular contractor, the scope of the work, the complete details of the work has to be mentioned. Okay, so that how this complete details of the project will be mentioned. The complete details of the project or the overall scope of the work or overall view of the work will be mentioned in the detailed project report. Okay, what actually is this detailed project report and what do you mean by risk analysis? Yes, in this particular session, I will be dealing with that concepts of detailed project report and risk analysis. The session objectives or the learning outcomes of this session are at the end of this particular session, students should be able to, okay. So if I ask students, once you learn this particular sessions, after if you should be able to answer these questions, that is, discuss the various sources of a risk in a construction project and the steps involved in risk analysis and significance of a detailed project report and its contents. So if I ask, or if anybody asks you what actually is a detailed project report, but commonly known as DPR, you should be able to say yes, this is called as DPR and these are the contents of DPR, and its significance in construction project is too vast. So those applications of DPR where actually it is prepared, what are its contents, the student should be able to answer those things. The next uh, outcome of this session is apply risk analysis techniques to identify the factors that put a project at risk and to quantify the likely effect of it on project costs and time scales. So you might have seen in the tenders last phase of a tender, that is risk analysis. After post tender process, we have one particular process known as risk analysis. Okay, then what do you mean by that risk analysis? There, the risk associated with that project will be evaluated. So the engineer in charge from the principal will be dealing or will be evaluating the risk. So if you become a project manager or an engineer in a particular organization, then you should be able to apply the risk analysis techniques, so to identify the factors that put a project at risk and to identify the likely effect of it on project cost and time scales. So this is the learning outcome of this particular session. The contents of uh, this particular construction planning, this is the overview. What do you mean by planning process? What is the objectives of planning process? So in planning process, the main objective of planning is to development of project designs, plans, schedules and cost estimate. So I in project management introduction, I had discussed what is the major steps that we do in planning. So the in planning stage, we will be developing the project designs, plans here actually doesn't mean the building drawing plans or the drawing sheets. Okay, plans here means the strategies, how to achieve the objectives of the projects, the way of achieving the objectives of the project, that is called as plans. And the plans schedules means to achieving the objectives you might be planning the activities. Okay, activity A might be having some duration, activity B might be having some durations, like that you are going to plan different activities, right? For that each activity you are going to schedule or you are going to allot the resources and time. Okay, that is the first objective of planning process, that is development of project designs, plans, schedules and cost estimates. The second objective of planning process is use products of the pre-construction phase to guide project construction and startup. So the second objective of planning is to use products of the pre-construction phase to guide project construction and startup. The third objective of planning process is the potential risk factors, that is conditions that might go wrong during construction and cause problems with successful project execution can be identified. So here why do we require, so what is the purpose of studying this particular risk analysis technique is to identify the potential risk factor, okay, to identify those risk factors which affects, okay, or which makes the conditions that might go wrong during construction phase, or and it might this due to these conditions or due to such incidents, the project may cause some might be caused some problems, so which will delay the work, or it might cause problems for the successful project execution. So here the purpose of risk analysis at the planning stage itself is to identify those risk factors which might make the project go to in a wrong step, okay, which will delay the successful project completion. So the last objective of planning process is feasible and reliable construction methods can be developed. So in the planning stage itself you will be making strategies and you will be evaluating the different strategies. So how these strategies or how this evaluation process will help? This evaluation process will help in deciding the feasible and reliable construction methods. So to develop a feasible and reliable construction methods. Okay, then what are the different types of project plans? As I told earlier, there are four M's. Okay, four M's for as a resources. When we say resources in any project management, especially related to construction, so there will be four M's. Okay, four M's means manpower, machinery, material, and money. So these four M's: manpower, machinery, material, and money. Okay, all these four M's will be bound by a particular constraint that is called as time. So in project plan, when we talk about project plan, the project manager or the person in charge should be planning all these resources. So what are the different resources that a project has to plan? What are the different types of project plan? It should be time plan, manpower plan, material plan, construction equipment plan, and finance plan. Okay, so the project manager should be able to plan all these five resources. Okay, then coming to DPR, we call it as a detailed project report. What do you mean by DPR? What is meant by detailed project report? Okay, let me take, there is a highway execution that has to be done. Okay, there is a point A and there is a point B. A highway has to be constructed. So highway has to be constructed between point A and point B. So the government, okay, basically the government has will be having the authority to construct a highways. So here to construct this particular highway, for this proposal, once the government gives sanction, okay, we call for a tenders. Once tender has been called and that particular tendering process has been made, and uh, while it has to be awarded, okay, there is something document called as detailed project report has to be prepared. Okay, what actually is this detailed project report? What does it contains? Okay, so we'll look in detail about this detailed project report. So we call it as DPR. You should remember the things that before commencement of any project, this DPR called as detailed project report has to be prepared. Okay, what actually do you mean by DPR? DPR is nothing but a essential building block of any company, or it is essential building block of any project. Okay, how this DPR is helpful? It is helpful in sustainable quality service delivery. Okay, for example, if you are planning for a trip, let us assume you are planning for a trip to visit all the northern India places within 15 days. Here, the 15 days is a resource constraint. The objective of your trip is to visit various places of northern India. So now, within a time constraint, and you will be having, each one of you will be having a budget constraint. So using all these constraint, you are going to plan. So for I visit Delhi, and 5 days I will be staying in Delhi. So in and around places of Delhi I will be seeing within 5 days, and then I go to uh, Jammu and Kashmir. Then I will be staying in Jammu and Kashmir for another 5 more days. Like that, you plan each and every um, concept or each and every activity of your trip. Okay, so this complete planning, budget allocation, resources. Why this planning is required? Because you want to finish your trip within 15 days and you have to cover as many places as possible. So you want to complete as many places as possible because you want a trip to be more quality kind of thing. Okay, that is why in any project, we initially prepare detailed project report for sustainable quality service delivery. Okay, for sustainable quality service delivery. So why this detailed project report is helpful? It ensures the appraisal, approval, and subsequent project implementation. It helps the appraisal, approval, and subsequent project implementation. Moving on to typical contents of DPR. As I told you, DPR is nothing but it is an initial document where the complete details of the project will be maintained. Okay, what actually is contents of the DPR will be there? The contents of the DPR includes introduction and need of the project. Introduction and need of the project. Let us take a water supply project itself. There is a overhead water tank to be constructed on the top of the means in a particular village. You want to you want to make a water supply project, then you will be constructing a overhead water tank of some capacity. So in if you are preparing DPR for this water supply project, here you have to give introduction of the project. So where in which village you are proposing the water supply project, that is the introduction of the project, and the need of the project. Yes, why that particular village requires the water supply project, why do they need overhead water tank, and what is the present status of the village for the water supply purpose. Okay, all these contents will be mentioned in the introduction and need of the project. Okay, the second typical content of a DPR is information of the project area. Information of the project area means, again taking an example of the water supply project. Here, to make a water supply, you should be having 2 points. That is, you should be having a for a construction of a water overhead water tank, you should be having a elevated area of that particular region, so that the water flow is uh, smooth smooth enough to for the supply for that particular area. Okay, so in such case, in such water supply projects, um, need you might be in need of the topographical details of that project and geographical locations of the project. So this comes under the criteria called as information about project area. Okay, the third typical content of DPR is project overview and methodology. A project overview and methodology involves the scope of the project. What is the scope of the project? If this project is made, what are its benefits? So who are the people getting benefited because of this project? So that is will be these things will be dealt in the project overview and methodology. The next content of DPR is Field investigations and technical reports. Field investigation involves the survey reports, the questionnaire survey done at that particular site, or the feedback from the people who are at that particular geographical locations, and the technical report involves soil investigation reports or the topographical details. Okay, like that, the contents will be there. The next is project components. Now we are proposing a water supply for that particular area. So if you are supplying water supply, what are the different components it should be involving? The first component might be surveying. The second component might be construction of overhead tank. The second, third component might be construction of the sewage tank, and the fourth component might be laying of pipelines from chainages, different chainages, the plan related to laying of pipelines for different chainages. So these might be the project components. The last, not the last, the next component is detailed engineering design. So what is the how is the purpose of execution goes, and if it is requiring some structural detailed design drawings or some analytical calculations for the flow of water. So what should be the diameter of the pipe, what should be the length of the pipe, okay, what is the head loss, okay, like that, all these details, detailed complete set of detailed engineering design will be made in the detailed engineering design phase of DPR. Here the complete details will be mentioned in the DPR. Then the cost, DPR consists cost estimates. Once the complete DPR has been prepared, the cost estimates for the particular work. Okay, for example, if there is a pipeline laying work in the this water supply project, so how much of the pipes are required? So the complete bill of quantities for that project will be mentioned. What is the excavation rates, and then what is the labor rate, then the different rates like concreting rates. For construction over a tank, you might be requiring different kinds of materials. So though it might be formwork, cement, sand, aggregates, ready mix concretes, then some mechanical machineries for installation of pipes. Okay, all those details, that complete cost estimate, the complete bill of quantities for the project will be mentioned in this cost estimate. Then environmental and social assessment. Environmental and social assessment means if this project has been executed, will it be beneficial for the society, will it be beneficial for the environment, or whether it is going to emit some hazardous substance. Like that, complete environmental assessment and clearance certificate has to be obtained. These all concepts will be taken into consideration while preparing the DPR. Then comes economical and financial analysis. Economical analysis might be involving this benefit cost, doing the benefit cost analysis. Okay, so since it will be some kind of public projects, so at what extent these projects are helpful for the publics, those evaluations. So we have many methodologies or technological solutions to carry out economical and financial analysis. For economical analysis, we have concept called as break-even analysis, we have a concept called as benefit cost analysis, and we have the other concept, rate of return analysis. So using this analysis, whether this project is of a profit or it is of loss, whether it is beneficial for the society or whether it is not beneficial for the society. Okay, the economic analysis can be done. And when we talk about financial analysis, if there is some four alternatives for that particular project, to find out which alternative, whether alternative 1 is better than alternative 2 or alternative 2 is better than alternative 4. Okay, like that, the possibility of choosing the best alternatives can be done in financial analysis of the DPR. Then the implementation framework. Implementation framework means again the planning and scheduling details, on which date what plans has to be, what activities have been planned, and the schedule, whether each activity for how many days it has been scheduled, and what are the resources allocated for that particular implementation of those activities. Those things will be mentioned in the implementation framework. Okay. Now I will be discussing in detail the typical contents of the DPR. So what are the different typical contents of the DPR? As I told you, in introduction and need of the project, the background of the project. Background of the project includes why this project has been taken, what is the scope of this project, why, whether it is beneficial for the society or not. Like the background study of the project will be there. Need of the project. Need of the project means the beneficiaries of the project. Okay, T or terms of requirement for the project. So whether it is a public project or a private project, and if it is a public project, how much it is beneficial to the society. If it is a private project, then who are the beneficiaries. So because of this private project, anybody is getting benefited, any public is getting any benefited. So this all terms of requirements for the project will be done in the introduction and need of project. And scope and limitations of the study. Scope or limitations means sometimes if you are proposing a airport at a particular place, so though it might be beneficial for many people, but the land acquisition for that particular airport or the locality surroundings might not be feasible for the construction of airport. Okay, due to this land feasibility, the proposal might be discontinued. Okay, those act as a limitations. But if airport has been constructed at that particular place, the accessibility of people would have been increased. So for any project, to take up of any project, the scope and limitations of the study. Okay, what are the scope of the project and what are the limitations of the project? Those things will be studied in the introduction and need of the project. Okay, the second uh, content of the DPR is background of the study, the demand studies and availability. So in one of my previous lecture, had taken example for construction of metro line. So in Bangalore, there is a lot of scope of expansion of metro line. So if you take up the purple metro line, the last stop of one of the last stop of purple at metro line is Nagsandra. They want to extend this purple metro line to Nelmangla. Why till Nelmangla? Because Nelmangla is, though it was earlier it was a different town, now due to rapid urbanization, the cities are getting connected. These small towns or villages are getting connected to the Bangalore metropolitan city. So it is due to rapid urbanization, all these um, say villages and cities are getting to be inside of the Bangalore city. So here, taking an example of the expansion of metro line, if I want to expand this metro line from Nagasandra to Nelmangala, okay, I have to do some analysis, some studies. So if I expand this metro line from Nagasandra to Nelmangala, how much the demand will be created? So who are the end users? How much the public will be benefited? Okay, so to go ahead with this particular project, whether there is enough land availability. If I take up this project, if the project has been granted, this construction is feasible or not. Okay, or what is the need? So uh, there is a lot of industries that have been connected to the Bangalore city. The people, these workers or the labor class of people or some class of the people, okay, who are coming to Bangalore for the work. So the in and around, okay, around the Bangalore city, there might be many people who are coming as a laborers, who are coming as engineers, like that. Based on their qualifications, their different set of people might be moving into or traveling to Bangalore, okay, for the purpose of work. So if I provide this metro facility from Nagasandra to Nelamangala, will it be beneficial? So what is the demand? Okay, basically what is the demand um, of construction of metro line? Those things will be studied in the background of the study. Okay, third content of the DPR is general information and characteristics of the study. What I mean by general information, the general information and characteristics of study means it is physiography, as I told you, physiography, physical characteristics of the land. So what is the land profile, then the topography, okay, what is the RL, whether it is a cliff, whether it is a hilly area, or what type of conditions have been prevailing at that particular land. The climate and rainfall data, whether it is too sunny or whether it is too too much of moist condition like that, the rainfall data, climate data will be taken into consider in the general information and the characteristics of the climate and rainfall. Hydrology means the water resources. For example, if you are going to construct a industry, if you are going to convert in a particular area into industrial area, so to make a particular area as an industrial area, you might be requiring many resources. The first type of resources is cheaper availability of land. The second type of resources means you might be requiring labor people, okay, for the industries. And the third thing is, if you are having labor people, cheap availability of land, the other thing is, you might be needing some water supply, okay, water resources for that industry. And once you have all this labor and manpower, everything for them, for those people, you should be able to arrange the basic amenities like housing, shelter, all those things, food, okay, whether that particular area, that condition is suitable or not. So that those studies, hydrological study, geological study, the if you take up the building or construction of some industry itself, if you take up the land is available cheaper, labor is available, everything, but in that land you cannot construct a building, then it is of no use. So that's why while preparing DPR, all this study, physiography study, topographical study, climate and rainfall, hydrology, geological, seismicity, etc., all these studies will be made. So, okay, all the studies will be made, and this complete report of all the studies will be mentioned in the general information and characteristics of the study. In project overview, the next content of DPR is project overview. Okay, so what do you mean by project overview? Project overview includes project area, geographical settings, climate, geology and structure, environmental settings, social settings, etc. Again, taking the example of this industrial setup of industrial area, you might have proposed mm, the particular project details might be submitted, but here there might be some opposition from the local people, okay, that is called as political opposition. So geographical opposition, or geographical, not geographical opposition, political oppositions, there might be some social obligations at that particular area, that is called as social settings for that project. Then comes methodology. Methodology is depending on the constraints of each project, location and time available for the construction process. If it is a remote construction process or a remote construction area, okay, there the material supply might be difficult because the transportation of that materials might be not easier. Then comes field investigation. Field investigation means scope of work for that particular project on field. What are the exact requirements on field? Those things will be studied in the field investigation. Then comes previous and present investigation. The next content of the DPR is detailed engineering design. Okay, so detailed engineering design involves not only civil engineering design, but it involves civil, electrical, mechanical designs. Depending on the constraints of each project, location and time available for the construction process, okay, the detailed engineering design will be made. Okay, for example, the taking of that example of the setting up of industrial area, huge industrial sheds might be are supposed to be constructed. Okay, then for all these industrial shed, the machinery requirements, the huge machineries might be requiring. For huge machineries means again the strong foundations, the machine foundations has to be laid. Okay, so for such machine foundations, the structural design or the complete designs for that structure has to be made. Okay, the specialized structural design has to be made. Okay, those details will be mentioned in the DPR, and what kind of machineries has to be installed. Then if those machineries has been installed, how much capacity electrical line has to be mentioned. Okay, those complete design, detailed engineering design involves civil engineering design, electrical engineering design and mechanical engineering design. So then finally the cost estimate for all this detailed design made or for all the studies made, okay, the cost estimate will be done, that is different bill of quantities, basic rates of labor or a manpower, rates of material, equipment cost, abstract of the cost estimate including land, miscellaneous items, all these studies will be made. In environmental and social impact assessment, the environment protection strategies, again taking an example in this um, industrial structure itself. Here, if that structure comes in, that industrial area comes into existence, okay, who are all the people affected? Okay, what is the effect on the environment? So, if it is an industry, there might be effluents from the industries led to the water source, or effluents from the industry led to the leading to the air pollution. It might be leading to the water pollution, and also it might be leading to the noise pollution, as well as it might lead to the traffic, like that. Okay, so there are many um, these constraints for a particular project, but again on other hand, if you see the on the benefits of the project, it might be more. So for this environmental protection provisions, uh, how you are going to enhance the positive impacts which complies with the bank policies, government of India regulatory policies, those measures, the strategies will be mentioned in the DPR. Then comes economic analysis. Economic analysis involves detailed analysis of trends in sector financing, analysis of sources of funds for investment and recurrent financing, review of pricing and cost recovery options, including willingness to pay for services, review of financial performance of sector institutions, assessment of and recommendations for alternative resource mobilization strategy. Here in economic analysis, not only for that particular project, the analysis, the financial analysis of the company itself will be done. Okay, the financial analysis of the company will be done, means what are the different projects in hand they are having. Okay, what are the different financial capabilities or different financial options they are having if they take up this project. Okay, those things comes under economic analysis. Next comes financial analysis. Financial analysis means the cost estimates of the project, the revenue streams for this project, grants from central government. If it is a government projects, what is the share of the government? What is the share of the central government? So sometimes the governments will be providing subsidies for the project. In such cases, what is the government share? What is the central government share? State government share? Equity and debt mechanism, user charges, other revenue identified, okay, like that implementation framework, those things will be mentioned here in this. Then finally the conclusion and recommendations. So once all these details of the project have been mentioned, then the overall conclusion and recommendations, whether this project is feasible or not, whether to go ahead with this project or not, if this project has been made, whether the contractor will be benefited or not, whether the public will be benefited or not, whether the government will be benefited or not. The complete conclusions will be made in the detailed project report. Based on the conclusions, the recommendations to take up the project or not. Okay, those recommendations will be made. Now till here we had discussed about detailed project report. Once detailed project has been prepared, the risk analysis comes into picture. Okay, as I discussed in my uh, tenders topic, part 2 of tenders, risk analysis we will be doing in the post tendering phase of a project. Okay, what actually do you mean by risk analysis? Risk analysis, it is nothing but a process. Okay, it is a process of identifying and quantifying the risk involved in a project and developing measures to avoid and manage such a risk. Okay, so any construction project you take, it is a risk. Okay, for a contractor as well as principal, it is risk. But once you execute the project and once you start using that project's facility, then you will be having benefit. So to there is a saying, if you take more risk, you will be more benefited. On the other hand, if you take risk beyond the limits, then definitely it will be leading to the loss. So the definition of risk here says is, it is a process. Risk analysis, the definition of risk analysis says here is, it is a process. It is a general process of identifying and quantifying the risk involved in project and developing measures to avoid and manage such risk. Okay, what is the definition of risk? The definition of risk is uncertain event or condition. It is a risk is nothing but a uncertain event, or it is uncertain condition if it occurs has a positive or a negative effect on a project objectives. Okay, usually these contractors, what they will do, they will put tenders, right? Okay, the putting of tenders is also part of a risk. If they get tender, it is a positive benefit. They will execute work and they will be having a bread earning. But if they don't get, it is a negative benefit. So, but here the chances, the probability of getting the project or not getting the project, again it is a probability, that is called as uncertainty situations. Sometimes if you see in gambling, okay, in you see in the gambling, they usually take this risk. Okay, what actually is that risk? It is uncertain condition. In gambling, you will not be knowing, okay, whether you are going to win or you are not going to win. Most of the times people will not win. That is another issue. That is an uncertain event or a condition where if it occurs has a positive or a negative effect on a project objectives. If that is uncertain event, if it is occurs, if it has a positive or negative effect on a project objectives. Okay, basically in general, the risk can be defined as it is unknown, unexpected, undesirable, and unpredictable. So it is risk is an endeavor or a action, okay, endeavor or action on the aspects which is unknown, which is unexpected, which is undesirable and unpredictable. So as I told you, there is a uncertainty. The uncertainty involves, uncertainty means it might be unknown. Uncertainty means it might be unexpected. Uncertainty means it might be undesirable. Or uncertainty means unpredictable. These all uncertainties, or this all uncertainties, okay, might be having a positive effect or it might be leading to the negative effect. So this is in general, risk is an endeavor or action which might be unknown, which might be unexpected, undesirable and unpredictable. Okay, so why do we have to do risk analysis? What are the benefits of doing risk analysis? When do we do risk analysis? Risk analysis will be done in the prior to the project or before the commencement of the project. So what are its benefits of systematic risk identification, or what are the benefits of performing this systematic? So it will lead to the more realistic business and project planning. So uh, if you are going to some place, okay, if you are traveling by a car, and initially you might have planned different routes. If I take route A, there might be risk of meeting with an accident, or the road might be very congested, or it might be having more traffic. If I take route B, it might be far, or it might be the journey might be longer, but the comfortness of the journey will be more compared to route A. See, here you are going to assess the risk in before going or before commencement of the journey. Similarly, if you do the risk analysis before commencement of the project, or you go for a systematic risk identification, there you will be having a more realistic business and project planning, because the uncertainties what you are going to expect in the future will already been or has already been studied or has already been anticipated at the initial planning stage itself. So that is what we call it as more realistic business and project planning. The next benefit of systematic risk identification is action being implemented in time to be effective. So you anticipate some risk or some uncertainties in the early stage itself. So you anticipate your actions have been already anticipated. Okay, so that is the benefit, one of the benefit. So greater certainty of achieving business goals and project objectives. There will be greater certainty of achieving business goals and project objectives. Then appreciation of and readiness to exploit all beneficial opportunities. So since you have already anticipated the risk at the earliest stage itself, you will be able or you will be ready to exploit all beneficial opportunities. Okay, then improved improved loss control. Improved loss control means whatever the loss you have anticipated earlier at the risk stage itself. So when actually that risk comes in front of you, you will be already prepared. Similarly, the many other benefits are improved control of project and business costs, increased flexibility as a result of understanding all options and their associated tasks, greater control over innovation and business development. So because it is usually said innovations leads to many uncertainties, innovation leads to many uncertainties, and many uncertainties means more number of risk. So if you have already anticipated the risk at the initial stage itself, so the control, the greater control over the innovation will be there and for the business development. And then fewer costly surprises through effective and transparent contingency planning. So there will be fewer costly surprises through effective and transparent contingency planning. Okay, then how this risk management process will be proceeded ahead. Okay, the risk management process. Okay, the context of risk is the first step in risk management process. The second step in risk management process is risk identification, and risk analysis is the third step, risk evaluation, then risk treatment. For example, if you are having some disease, or when you go to doctor for saying that you are not feeling well, okay, what that doctor will do, doctor will initially try to identify what is the problem that has happened to your body. That is the similar way you are going to identification. Okay, there doctor identifies the illness, the reason for illness, that is the risk identification in our thing. Then risk analysis, similarly there in case of doctor, he will try to analyze what has happened, what are the causes that might be leading to your illness. Then the risk evaluation means, so what is the main cause, uh, in the sense how this particular risk has been, or this illness has been attacked to you. Okay, that is the risk evaluation, the intents of that particular illness will be studied by the doctor. Similarly, risk evaluation means the intents of that particular uncertainty will be studied here. Then comes risk treatment. Risk treatment is nothing but you are going to provide solutions for the risk whatever you are going to face. Similarly, as the doctor gives prescription of the medicine for your illness, the same way the risk treatment is the step here. What are the, here we will look after different processes in risk identification. The first step is risk identification process. What we will be doing here is the process consists of identifying all potential sources, so the all potential sources of project risk and their likely consequences. So again, taking an example of going from to a particular place. So you have route A, route B, route C. If you take route A, there might be traffic congestions, there might be danger of accident. If you take route B, it might be longer, but it is more comfortable like that. For each of the potential sources, or for each of the alternative, you are going to identify the risk and its likely consequences. Then finding out the causes for those risks. Then some of the methods. So here in risk analysis, we have some of the methods to do the risk identification. That is brainstorming. So brainstorming means you put some people in a uh, room and ask them to give their inputs of the based for that risk, particular risk area. So that is called as brainstorming. Then the second option is interviews. You go on to person, take interviews. The third is questionnaires. You put up a questionnaire survey amongst a particular group or those who have already experienced in that project. You hand over the questionnaires to them, and those people will uh, give you the details, or they'll revert with with their ideas. So that is the questionnaires. Then availing services of specialists. So specialists means those who have already um, dealing with such kind of risk. They are already experts in such kind of risk. So you will be asking them, or you will be availing the services of the specialists. The last type of method is past experience. Past experience involves um, the previous experience of the project, means similar kind of instances you might have faced, that is called as past experiences. In risk identification process, so here in the risk identification process there might be there is a process. Okay, initially a preliminary checklist will be issued, then for each risk identified factors, the consequences will be mentioned. For example, if I go by travel by route A, okay, what are the risk involved? Okay, then I'll be, there is a chances of meeting with the accident, there is a chances of traffic congestions, there might be a cop, okay, who will be checking our documents. Like you will be evaluating the risk, okay, in each of the consequences. Then comes risk mapping, then risk classification, and risk category summary sheet. So in risk events consequences scenario, preparation of checklist, identification and definition of consequences of each risk. Consequences, how we will be mentioning, it will be mentioned in the forms of economic gains or losses, injury to the personnel involved with the work, physical damages, time and cost related savings, or time and cost related savings are overrun, consequences brought to a common scale, preferably in monetary terms. Risk mapping. Okay, what do you mean by risk mapping? Mapping means it is a two-dimensional plot between the probability of occurrence of the uncertainty and its potential severity. So how we are going to plot? You are going to plot. Okay, you are going to plot a two-dimensional graph or a two-dimensional figure. So where it is between the probability of occurrence of uncertainty and its potential severity. So the ISO risk curves. So I'll show how this ISO risk curves. Here you can see the ISO risk curves. So it is a two-dimensional plot of probability of occurrence of the risk and potential severity of the risk. These are the ISO risk curves for different projects. Factors influencing risk. Okay, there might be different factors influencing risk. That is, the first factor is act of God. The second factor might be physical. Third factor might be financial and economical. Fourth is construction related, design related, and political and environmental related. See, all these factors influencing our risk are only applicable for construction project or only related to civil engineering project. This these factors are not applicable for other domain. This is only for civil engineering domain. Okay, we shall discuss one by one. The first factor is acts of God. The first factor is act of God. Act of God means it might be the risk associated with the project is might be due to flood or a earthquake or a landslide or a wind damages. This is first factor influencing risk. Okay. The second factor influencing risk might be physical. Physical here means it is damage to the structure, damage to the equipment, okay, damage to labor injuries, fire, theft. Okay, you have a construction project where there is damage to the construction project or damage to that particular structure, then damage to the equipment and labor injuries, okay, fire and theft. Okay, these are the factors influencing this, or these are some of the um, outcomes of this particular physical factors. The third factor influencing risk is financial and economical. Okay, in financial economical means, okay, there might be uh, inflation in the cost due to the change in the tax structure. Okay, due to change in the tax structure, there might be increase in the price of some materials. So due to the increase in price of the materials, okay, the project cost might go up. So that is what we call it as inflation. And availability of funds. Okay, availability of funds. So initially the government might announce some budget, but at later stage it might not be feasible. So that is called as availability of funds. Then exchange rate fluctuations based on the dollar rates or the euros rates, the international market will be affected. So that is called as exchange rate fluctuations. Then financial default of a company. Next comes political and environmental. Political environmental risk involves changes in laws and regulations. Okay, changes in laws and regulations, requirement for permits, law and order, uh, conditions of that particular area. There is some changes in law and order, and there might be change in rules and regulations due to government changes or due to some parliamentary acts. Okay, the changes in laws and regulations might be there. Requirement for permits, earlier the licenses might not be required, but later the government says licenses are mandatory. Those things are called as requirement for permits. Here in the design phase, uh, the incomplete design scope. So the components are not properly designed as per the specifications, and if there is a defective design, and if there are any errors and omissions. So in such cases, it is called as a defective design if there are errors and omissions in the design. Okay, the usually in India the designs will be as per the Indian standards code. So if the designs are not made as per the uh, inadequate specifications, then we call it as a designs leading to influencing risk. Then we call it as construction related. It might be labor disputes, labor productivity, difference in site conditions, design changes, equipment failure. Risk, then after evaluating the risk category summary sheet will be prepared. The objective of preparing risk category summary sheet is involving all the participants in the project management team. So here all the people will be called together, means there might be different teams. Design team might be there, legal team might be there, project management team, contracts team, like that. All people will be called, and then risk category summary sheet will be made. Then risk analysis and evaluation process. So all the data has been collected. Then modeling of uncertainty and evaluation of potential impact of risk. In data collection, available data based on the expert's opinion or the feedback got from the brainstorming or questionnaire surveys are helpful in data collection. Modeling uncertainty means which are the factors contributing for the major um, damages. So those factors will be considered here as a model. You will be ranking the risk. Rank 1 goes to more highly insignificant risk or a more potential risk. Like that, you will be modeling uncertainty here. Evaluation and potential impact. So the highest risk will be associated with more damage, so more monetary damage. So we have some other softwares called as Monte Carlo simulations and influence diagram. The risk management process or risk treatment. So as I told you, risk treatment means you are going to treat the risk. One thing is by doing risk avoidance or loss reduction and risk prevention, risk retention and assumptions, risk transfer and insurance. So these are different ways of risk treatment process. Look into one by one. Risk avoidance means you are not going to take up that particular risk itself. So for example, if there is a project which is having highly significant risk, means some more damage might be happening to the contractor, so the contractor is of more uncertainty, so in such type you will not take the contract itself, so you will avoid that contract itself, so that is called as risk avoidance. Then loss reduction and risk prevention. So here, to avoid so risk, you will be quoting highly for that particular project. So that you are, if the uncertainty happens or if there is risk associated with that execution, you will not be facing too much of loss. The third is risk retention and assumption. Risk retention and assumption means assumed value of the risk, impact of risk. Planned, it might be planned type or unplanned type. So planned means conscious effort has been made to significant to make the estimate of financial impact. Unplanned means the company may exist. So in planned means you will be planning for the financial details. Unplanned means though you anticipate the risk, you will not be planned for it. It is like somewhat like that. When it comes to you, you will be looking after it. Third is risk transfer, non-insurance or contractual. So what the contractor will do is he will take up the project and he'll give subcontract of that risk involved activity to some other subcontractor or those who is specialized in that particular work. So you take up the contract and you transfer that risk to subcontractor. This is called as risk transfer. The other way of protecting from risk is making insurances. So insurances are very good features for anticipating risk. There are different criteria features for a principle of risk, that is insurable interest, utmost good faith, indemnity, subrogation, proximate cause, consideration, average, and contribution. Insurance policies for construction organization is fire insurance, workman's compensation insurance, group persons accident policies, overseas medical claim policies, cash insurance, fidelity guarantee, motor insurance, machinery breakdown policy, marine insurance, contractors all risk insurance, plant and machinery insurance. Like that, there are different risks for different projects. You have vehicle insurance. If you are met with an accident during vehicle, you have vehicle insurance. Similarly, if you are having any health issues, if you go to the doctor, you have health insurance. Okay, if you are die due to some other circumstances, you have term insurance. Like that, for a person you are having different. Similarly, for a project also we are having different type of insurances. For laborers working at the site, we will be providing labor insurances. So the project risk management involves four steps. Just to brief it out. So project risk management involves four different steps, that is project identification, project evaluation, risk response development, risk response control. Risk identification involves historical review, current assessment, creativity techniques such as brainstorming, all those things. Risk evaluation involves two types of analysis. One is a quantitative analysis and a qualitative analysis. Here, the probability of the extent of risk um, coming into picture will be noted down here. That is, probability of occurrence of risk will be studied. So the two techniques is quantitative analysis as well as qualitative analysis. In quantitative analysis, we have decision tree analysis in and simulation. Okay, we have different softwares for software simulations for the um, quantitative analysis. For this is decision tree analysis. So if A is a decision, A and B are the uncertainties rising due to the decision of 1. Okay, if decision 1 has been taken, A and B are the uncertainties. Okay, then C 2, if 2 decision 2 is taken, outcome of decisions, and if B uncertainty happens, what are the outcomes? If uncertainty A happens, what are the outcomes? If uncertainty A might be leading to uncertainty C and C's outcomes. Okay, this is called as decision tree analysis. Simulation, for simulation we have different softwares or a model of systems. We have a schedule simulation, Monte Carlo analysis. The commonly used software is Oracle's Crystal Ball. Risk evaluation is by the quantitative qualitative analysis. Main techniques used are probability or impact matrices, expert judgments. So this is a probability versus impact. So if one risk happens, what are its impact? If this risk happens, though its probability of occurrence is high, the impact is low. So hence it falls in this table. If you take the probability is high and the impact is high, risk 1 and 4 come into pictures. This is just an example to explain the probability of impact matrix. Risk response methods, already I have discussed elimination, risk avoidance or risk elimination, risk transfer, risk retention and risk reduction. So the way of risk response method, if it is risk elimination or risk avoidance, you are going to tender a very high bid and make sure that particular project is not awarded to you. So placing conditions on the bid, or you make some standard contract clauses that so that the contract will not be avoided. So pre-contract negotiations as to which party certain take risk, not bidding on the high risk portion of the contract. Next is risk transfer. Activity responsible of the risk may be transferred. The activity may be retained, but the financial risk transferred. Retention, handling this by the company who is undertaking the project. Two retention methods, active and passive methods. Active retention is a deliberate management strategy. Passive retention occurs through negligence, ignorance, or absence of decision. Reduction, continuous effort related with company's improvements, improving maintenance, first aid procedures and security, education and training within every department. So this is risk response control. In here, management plan is necessary. So the summary involves, we had discussed a detailed project report. What are the different components of detailed project report? What is the definition of risk? What are the different strategies for risk evaluation process? Risk identification process is the first step, then risk evaluation process, then risk treatment is the final step. So hope this session helps you uh, for understanding the concept of detailed project report and risk analysis. Thank you.